what we really don't want to happen is like, we don't want to miss the one candidate in that pool who is the best candidate because for whatever reason, AI filtered it out. We also don't want the AI to introduce any bias into the system. So like we have to be really careful that, we're still, we have underrepresented group, touch candidate first touch metrics. And we want to make sure that the AI is, not disparately filtering out or impacting folks.
Welcome to the POZcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the POZcast Live, People Leaders Roundtable. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us a couple of minutes. We were just getting started here. Let's bring this incredible panel into today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are we all doing today?
Great.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here. And everyone who is tuning in across the world, wherever you are, I want to thank you in advance for spending some time with us. We're going to chop it up and talk about all things talent, recruiting, HR, politics, economy. Maybe we'll see how far we get into that. Maybe we'll poke the bear a little bit and see what happens. But first and foremost, I'd love to introduce my esteemed panel. We will start to my Hollywood squares. Which way am I going here? We'll start with Anna Morgan. Anna, welcome to the POZcast. How you doing?
Adam, thank you. I feel like I've finally made it now that I'm on the POZcast with two other amazing female people leaders. I'm Anna Morgan, owner of Careerbff. I do recruiting, consulting, and coaching, along with outplacement work as well. So a Jill of many trades, over 15 plus years, full cycle recruiting agency to corporate, now to entrepreneurship. So excited to dive into this conversation and, talk about what's coming in the world of work and hiring. So glad to be here.
What is coming? Let's go down. Katie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's so fun to be hanging out with all of you. Lovely folks on this beautiful sunny morning. My name is Katie Evans Reber, and I'm the Chief People Officer at Gladly. I've been in the people space for almost 20 years, worked at a number of different startups and seen lots of things and lots of trends in the future of work. And I love thinking about that stuff, and I love to talk about it even more. So happy to be here.
Well, awesome. And we're waiting for our third guest to join us back. And I think she's having difficulties. That internet signal needs to go from Europe, and it goes under the ocean and it crawls and it works its way through back to the Anyway, we're going to get to. So, Katie, you brought up something interesting too. You everyone here, we've been around the block for a little bit, some a little bit more than others, but I think that's an advantage because you've seen the trends and you've seen the cyclical element of what we do here in hiring. And now obviously it differs from industry to industry. So I want to start by boiling the conversation up to the 30,000 foot view and talk about just generally the market. What's happening right now? What are some of those things that we're seeing going on right now? Because there's a lot of mixed messages, right? There's a lot of things going on. But before we do that, we're going to pause that question and we're going to bring Elena in. Elena, hopefully you figured it out. Welcome.
Sorry about that. My connection decided to just crap out on me today. Sorry. But happy we made it work. Yes.
Please introduce yourself and we'll get back to the first question.
Yeah. So I'm Elena. I am the Senior Director of Talent at Labelbox. And that was fairly recently. I got promoted to all talent things at Labelbox. I was leading the recruiting function for 3+ years and expanded my role into more of performance and learning and development, just kind of end-to-end everything talent, which I'm super excited for.
I love it. Well, where's my air horn? Is my air horn working? There we go. I'm not going to do that anymore. I just get it once out of the way. It's like a trigger finger. Like if I don't hit that button at least once a day, we have a situation over here. My anxiety goes through the roof, and sometimes I'll just do a live broadcast just to hit that button for 30 minutes, and it has more views than anything. No, I'm kidding. So Elena, we jumped in. We're going to talk about the first topic du jour, which is really just understanding and talking about what's going on, just generally in the market right now. I mean, everyone knows what's been happening. Mass tech layoffs over the last couple of years, high inflation, the bubble has burst on all these giant, these loans that these companies took out, and first in, last in, first out, and also a lot of people that have been around for a long time have been getting laid off, and it's scary, and the market is flooded. So I want to talk a little bit about the good, the bad, and the ugly. Layer on top of that, here in the U.S., it's an election year with all the complications and issues that come for that. But Katie, generally speaking, what are you seeing from a hiring perspective? We'll talk specifically about the U.S. market just to keep it a little tighter.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just, as you said, it's rough out there right now if you're looking for a job. And we're seeing still, an order of 10x or maybe even 15x the amount of inbound candidates, per job posting than we've seen in the last, I want to say 10 years. The market really is just nuts right now. But what you're also seeing too is with sort of AI, they're coming in, everybody's had to rush to learn sort of like new skills. And if you are somebody who went out and spent some time, whether that's as a marketer learning to tell the story of AI or most obviously as an engineer, you're in a pretty good spot right now. And there's lots of work out there for you. For everybody else, I think it is still a rough market.
Yeah, and we're gonna put a pin in the AI because we're gonna get to that one in a little bit. So Anna, from your perspective as a recruiter, let's talk a little bit about some of those conversations, the frustrations that you're hearing, or maybe the silver linings, maybe some of the gold that's happening. But what are you seeing from a trends perspective?
Well, I mean, I think there's mixed messages, like you said. There's, I have this argument with my husband all the time. He's like, the unemployment rate is this. And then, I'll send him an article, that talks about, we're hoping that, the market is going to soften a little bit, and you have those like juxtaposing opinions where, a lot of recruiters are saying like it's going to get worse before it gets better. And then you have others that are indicating, not such a significant weakening, that they're recommending like easing the policy, which means, cutting rates. So I think, I recently rolled off a contract for like skilled workers, carpenters, mechanics, diesel techs, and, we were putting up billboards. We were doing all different types of ad campaigns. So I think there's definitely pockets like Katie mentioned, from software developers, software engineers, those might be more in demand, lower supply. But then the talent community is, in flux and available. And I liked what Elena said earlier, where she was like, well, I get to do a little bit of everything. And it's like, isn't that the epitome of a talent acquisition professional's job description? We're training, we're learning, we're sourcing, we're recruiting, we're stakeholder management, we're, performance management, career pathing, college recruiting, the whole 9 yards. So I think the most important thing is that, people stay where their feet are planted and, are leveling up their skills and keeping their networks really warm, and just aggressively networking and staying top of mind and kind of piecemealing work together at this point, especially for the TA community.
Yeah, it's definitely rough out there for a lot of us. And obviously it's simple when it's supply and demand. Companies are not hiring. They don't need recruiters. Recruiters are the first to go. And a lot of recruiters out there, we're holding, sticking to our guns and we're finding opportunities and diversifying. Where else can we take our skill set? What other areas? For me, it's like, all right, let me dip my toes into healthcare a little bit. Let's see if I could work in there. And I think you hit on something, Anna, that's really critical to talk about. When we look at those job numbers and we see 330,000, where are they coming from? And I'm seeing a lot of also, the more of the blue collar jobs that are harder to fill, because kids aren't coming out of school going, vocational training. And that's a big problem in the United States, and more of those technical roles as well, too. So there's a lot of opportunities, on that side. And then white collar roles, I hear, and please keep me straight on this one, there's a lack from an accounting perspective, like accounting and finances. There's a lower supply in there, too. So thinking about it as a recruiter, where you could shift your talents, where you could start to onboard a new skill. And we're going to talk about AI in a second. But Elena, from your perspective, what's one of those silver linings that you're seeing right now in the market?
I think this is one of those moments that we're going to look back and understand it was a big change that was happening in the market. I feel like it's kind of similar to when the internet came about and everything freaked out and everything changed. And it's kind of similar now, I think, with Gen AI and the whole world trying to understand it, learn it, adapt to it, integrate it in their work. So there's a lot of change that I think came from that. And obviously it impacts our work directly, being TA professionals. But even candidates, like, some are more savvy than others in using and leveraging Gen AI. And then, it becomes an interesting challenge for recruiters. How do you sift through that? How do you get, so it's a very interesting kind of trickle down effect to pretty much everything that we do. And I think on the flip side, with everything that happened in the industry, companies are also reacting in the sense of, trying to find ways where they could be more efficient. And that can translate kind of similar to my case, where roles become, you extend the scope of the roles of the people that you already have. So you're trying to do, more with the team that you have.
More with less.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's also part of the reason why we're not seeing, a big boom or a big rebound with hiring, because we're still kind of going through that transition. And I think a lot of us are just trying to figure out what this new world looks like and will look like for the future.
So let's get into that. First of all, thank you. That was a really fantastic take on what's happening right now. And AI is a scary word for many people out there. And it's either they feel overwhelmed, there's too much information coming at them, they don't know where to start, they don't know where to look, they have people chirping on their ears, they look on LinkedIn and they see crazy things. So we'll narrow it down, and we'll talk about two different aspects. I want to talk about it from a job seeker's perspective, and I want to talk about it from the internal company's perspective on how they're using AI. Anna and I have been out on the well, everyone here, we've been out at these industry events. And it looks like everyone and their mother is somehow incorporating AI into their candidate experience, AI, ATS, benefits, pay, everything. It's affecting everything. And like with anything, there's a learning curve. And we're trying to figure it out. And we're trying to see what works and what doesn't. But ultimately, at the end of the day, us in the talent community, we need to be mindful about that human experience. And that's what scares me, that some companies are pushing it a little too far. So, Anna, from the recruitment perspective, when you're working with your clients, where are you seeing some of the technological innovations for good, where some of the companies are using AI in their recruitment experience?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and the recruiting industry that I've seen, many people have been resistant to embrace AI. And, I'll be honest, I was in, Fortune 500 corporate mid last year, was the first that my team even started like dipping their toes in ChatGPT as a way to like alleviate the administrative burden of write-ups and summarizing notes and just basic things. I see AI as a way that we as talent leaders can create better candidate experiences where we can actually lead with more empathy and compassion and customize our responses and really communicate more humanly with some of these tools. Because I've also been hearing from the candidate experience, no one wants to get to the fourth round of an interview and not have spoken to a human.
Yeah.
And inevitably, there are still pockets where companies are struggling to find good talent. So if you put talent through that kind of experience, they're going to be like, bye-bye, and they're out. And then that your brand is damaged, like, the chances of them coming back to give you a second chance decrease exponentially. So I really think it's our job, the ninja change agents in the production seats and the talent leaders, to be really having with the executive board and those folks at the table so that they actually truly understand what is happening on the acquisition front and how our candidates are feeling, what their experience is, from seeing the posting or learning about the company through the interview process to onboarding. And the majority of companies at the top oftentimes don't want to hear it, but we need to keep fighting the good fight, as I say, right?
Keep on fighting the good fight too. And I've seen some great tech out there, especially for roles where there's qualifying questions or pretty much a standard questions that a lot of the recruiters are going to ask. That could be done by a bot or an AI technology, and it's making the recruiter's role more efficient. They're getting a summary of that, and they're able to spend that first human touch to get to know the candidate, to talk more intimately about the organization. And that's where I see it working well versus true replacement.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback on that. Candidates aren't worrying about, should I ask Anna about benefits or 401k, or how the company is involved in the community, what their mission, vision, and values are. That can be an AI integrated chatbot on the careers page, which I think really accelerates the candidate experience to get that knowledge, like you said, where then we can really dig into who you are, what you're looking for, to determine that mutual fit.
Yeah, absolutely. Katie, what are you guys doing as best as you could tell us? How are you testing and utilizing and integrating AI into the search process, the candidate experience, employee experience?
Yeah, well, I think, Anna, you said something really sort of interesting. And I think that's, really around the sort of mutual fit aspect. I think that AI is helping candidates match faster and sort through Glassdoor reviews and other sources of information on the company to see if they even want to, apply. And really, I think, especially with this generation that's coming into the workforce right now, it really is about this like mutual home, this mutual fit idea. I'm interviewing you as much as you're sort of interviewing me. And especially with this generation coming through, they do care about stuff like social corporate responsibility. They want the company to have a point of view, and more than even, perks and things that we used to see, especially in the tech industry over the last 10 years, it really is about those like socio-emotional aspects of a company that draws, folks in, and Gen AI is helping make those matches. Yeah.
And has there been a technology that you tested that you've decided for whatever reason, and I'm trying to name and shame the company, the product, but more so like, hey, we tried to do something to make the recruiter's job more efficient, and it turned out to be detrimental or negative because X, Y, and Z. Are you guys testing and learning?
Oh, totally. So I think maybe a great, we are getting so many inbound applications that it's pretty hard to like go through 1,500 or 2,000 applications for one marketer role that's open. And so we've definitely been testing AI filters and sorting. The problem is we don't know how good it is. So
that is a problem.
We had to do both, right? And in the beginning, until we find a tool that actually, and all of these tools are so brand new that of course none of them are perfect, and they're little quirks. But what we really don't want to happen is like, we don't want to miss the one candidate in that pool who is the best candidate because for whatever reason AI filtered it out. We also don't want the AI to introduce any bias into the system. So like we have to be really careful that we're still we have underrepresented group candidate first touch metrics, and we want to make sure that the AI is not disparately filtering out or impacting folks from underrepresented.
And that's what we're figuring out too. And again, with AI is data in, data out. You're feeding it with the data, and it's still learning, and it's still evolving, and it's all about the inputs there. And you mentioned something very interesting, and I was going to touch on a little bit later, but it's the pipeline right now, right? This massive influx of pipeline where there's so many candidates coming in because they're out of work, and resources are constrained on the other side. So how do you balance, Elena, utilizing some of these filters to, dare I say, skill rank? And skill rank's a double-edged sword on that, because some candidates truly have it and they're represented well in their resume. And then others are using certain new AI tools, job seeker tools out there, which are literally scraping the job description and putting it into the resume, whether it's true, embellished, completely false. And it's making our jobs harder, but it's a game. Everything's gamified right now. Elena, what are you seeing out there, and what are you guys using? How are you dealing with this fire hose in our face, right? It's crazy.
It is a little bit of that, I think. But I think Katie mentioned something really important too. All of these tools that are coming out, and even existing tools that we have had and used, everyone now is trying to incorporate some sort of AI dimension to their offering. And in my experience, as you all said, they are all in the beginning. And so it kind of, even that trying to figure out what tool to use kind of puts a burden on my recruiters too, because as Katie was mentioning, they need to do both, is to assess, is that tool good enough for what we need? But also we don't want to miss out on candidates. And so I think it's the pressure is really on the recruiters to still add that human touch, test tools, and still, move the pipeline fast and make a hire as fast as possible. So I think it's important to understand their role into that and how their job is impacted by everything that's happening. But coming back to your question, Adam, it's interesting because we've had, like, in the past, there's always been some sort of advice on how to do your resume, how to format it, how to get whatever keywords from the job description that you're applying. It's just now it's a little bit on steroids. So some people, some candidates might seem like the perfect candidate, and it is what it is because of all of the tools that they've used to create their profile and their resume. I feel like that's fair game, right? Like, you can't say that's not okay either. So we just need to, again, kind of find our balance for ourselves and for our company and like what we're looking for and for the recruiting motion. So it's I think it's still an exploration for us. We're trying to not get too ahead of ourselves with all of the tools, and still my recruiters still look at pretty much everything that comes through. And it is a burden. It is high volume, but
it's making our job harder in some aspects too, because you're trying to suss out if they really have the skill or not. Right. It's kind of a tough one. And that's where recruiter training comes in for a highly skilled recruiter who, if you're staying in your lane, staying in your niche, companies where they're coming from, the kind of roles and responsibilities, right? So you could kind of guess, like, all right, they got this. They've been doing this, consecutively, progressively over a number of years. And you could kind of sense like that just jammed in there. They just wedged in, hey, I'm a expert at X, Y, and Z. And it's like, where? What company? So my default is to always urge candidates. I go, listen, let's keep it real for a second here. All of us here at some point in our career, we pump up our resume a little bit. We might embellish it a little bit to make it shine, right? But we're not falsifying information. We're not doing that. We're staying true to who we are and everything. And that's what I gauge candidates. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to shine, like you want to be your best self, but don't falsify information, because that's not a good look. Katie, how are you working with your internal recruiters on being overwhelmed right now? How are you working with them from that, bandwidth, mental health kind of lens?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we actually have a number of roles open right now. We have we hired 25-ish people last quarter, which is not that high volume for us, but in this market to have open roles at all is pretty incredible. And I think we got 20,000 inbound candidates for 23 roles. I mean, maybe that's a little exaggerating, but like my resume, but anyway, the volume was like, just incredibly high. And so I think what we have to do is a really good job of sort of prioritizing, and we have to do a really good job of being absolutely positive what we're looking for, both profile, sort of level, years of experience. And we have to be just very aligned across the board. Otherwise, I mean, the time to fill a role is actually exploding versus, even though the market's so hot, it's like the time to fill the role, because there's so much choice and hiring managers want to see so many more candidates than they did 3 years ago. So it's just taking longer. Like, the interview process is just expanding. Yeah.
Well, let's riff on that for a second there. I mean, I could speak firsthand that too, that hiring managers want to see more candidates because the talent pool is expanded, and it's come down to like decision, process paralysis to a certain point, thinking there's always going to be someone better. There's always going to be someone better. We haven't looked through all of them. We haven't, looked at every candidate that has applied. And it's rough, and it's causing negative effects internally in the teams that may be due to attrition or turnover, people getting let go, what have you. Folks are doing 2-3 times the work before. You're going to lose current employees. So I always urge, I like to take the lens of, me take a step back for a second. I think one of the best positions to evolve in the last 10, 15 years is the practice of HRBP practitioners. Someone who really understands the business element, someone who understands HR, someone who understands recruiting, and they're kind of that middle person who could really understand it from a strategic and a tactical perspective. And I've seen some of the best come in and say, hey guys, like, I think we're good here. We have great talent in front of us. Just make a freaking decision, right? And let's keep it moving. But Anna pinged me on something interesting too, which is the pipeline, right? There's so many candidates that are just flooding the pipeline because of Easy Apply and these other AI tools that are auto applying for you.
Yeah.
How could we, the three of us here representing the TA community, four of us here, sorry, and I can't count today, and just be champions to say, hey guys, if you're not at least X% qualified. Do we dare even say that at this stage? Like, hey, listen, if you're not at least, I kind of say in this market, 75% qualified, it's probably not in your odds just because of the volume. And that's a general comment. Would you agree with that, Anna?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, we've been making disposition decisions for 20 plus years. Like, we know how to do this, and we know how to partner with the business and make decisions in the best interest of the business. However, with this inflow of talent, I feel like this is where decision makers and organizations really have to wrap their arms around recruitment marketing. Because I don't know, I'm guilty of not realizing, or at times like running searches within my ATS, right? Like, I worked on Workday forever, which wasn't very supportive of actually finding people in the ATS. But what tools, and this is where Gen AI can help, that we can segment out and pipeline this type of talent. Because I can't tell you how many times I thought I was going to move forward with someone, and then a life situation happened, and I was able to bring in my number two, right? So how can we keep those conversations going with top talent that are interested in the brand and the employer we represent, and not having to start all over, right? So that when we're ready to open that position, we've got warm, engaged people. Then we also can command the conversations with the hiring managers more easily, because we have a little bit of history with this person, and we have more market insights too. Like, the whole just interview to interview about the decision that you're making, because time kills all deals. We know that. Mm-hmm. No matter the market.
Time kills deals. Time kills deals. Katie, how I'm going to assume that you're pretty on top of your part by friend shit over there at your company, and you're looking at numbers and metrics too. Mm-hmm. How are you looking, when you're looking top down at activity, performance, how do you kind of assess when you need to kind of get in there and grease the wheels a little bit? And how do you go about doing that with hiring managers and recruiters?
Well, I think probably the thing that happens most frequently it's kind of like what I was talking about before, the sort of paralysis, or, sometimes it's the interview process itself. We've designed like a pretty structured interview process that connects to our career paths and our performance development system. And so it's structured, it's not biased, and but straying from that a little bit, hiring managers, they love to just add in, oh, but I really want this person to meet this person.
Extra call, extra meeting, dealing with scheduling.
Yeah. And it goes from 4 to 6 to 7. And, you look back and you're like, this person has interviewed enough.
They're good.
10 hours of interviewing for this role is not appropriate. And so sort of reeling them, hiring managers, back in and convincing them that actually we're the subject matter experts in this field, and we're going to get you someone really amazing, and it'll just be your job to make a decision.
Elena, what are you seeing from your perspective as the recruiter?
I think on what I'm going to build on what Katie said, that's how my recruiters and we as a team work and partner with hiring managers, is to really come back to what exactly is the need on your team. What do you need and how fast? Because most of the time what happens is everyone wants, has an urgent need. They want that person yesterday, but somehow a disconnect happens somewhere. And then something like, let's have another chat. And then you're like, I thought this was urgent. I thought, your team is behind. I thought, you're strained and so on. So kind of putting back into perspective, like, hey, this is the urgency that we set, to open the search and find this person. Why are we delaying it now? And kind of realizing that it's a problem on our end and it's an internal issue that we need to address. I think also the way we work with our hiring managers is to have, and that's something that I've worked to build from the beginning, to have really crystal clear clarity on who does what in the recruiting process and the hiring process between recruiters and hiring managers. And most of the time, the hiring manager, beyond calibration and the initial stage, is to make decisions and let us know yes or no. And most of the time, the conversation comes back to that, like, this is what you need to do at this stage to give me a yes or a no. And if it's a no, then tell me why, so we can further calibrate. But coming back to basics, structured interview process, I think it's more important than ever, given the volume, given all of the changes and transitions that we're going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I coach a lot of my clients on. I mean, we're not just recruiters here, but we're also talking about TA and processes. You need it from a calibration standpoint. So you're reviewing every candidate, on a fair scale, and you're calibrating it accordingly. And then just keeping things moving. I mean, I see the number one problem in most of my clients is scheduling. They have a process, and then next thing you know, there's a week between communicating when we're going to schedule, and then that one gets moved down. All of a sudden, you're looking, and it's almost 15 business days since the last interview, and that is unacceptable to me as a recruiter. It's a tough pill for me to swallow when I'm trying to communicate that to a candidate. And at the end of the day, I mean, obviously it's an employer-driven market right now, but if you have to assume if someone's interviewing with you, they're interviewing with your competitor. That's kind of like this golden kind of foundational rule that I learned early on in recruiting. And time is of the essence. And you can't just get so in your head as a company and be like, no, we're the only ones. If they don't want us, then screw them. No. You have to be mindful.
Yeah. And like hiring managers during the summer, like,
oh yeah.
Oh, put that job on hold if you're taking a 7-week vacation this summer, right?
Well, that's an interesting point too, and then again, I think that also bubbles up to a fundamental skill that all good recruiters have is managing expectations, being very clear on that. Like if it's in the middle of July, I'm going to be like, hey, Anna, I know you applied for the role. We're very interested in you, but it's going to be 2 weeks before we even schedule because the hiring manager's out. It just is what it is. People are entitled to their time off, but then also maybe think about, okay, what's an alternative, right? I've done that with some great companies before. If they can't meet with Anna, they can meet with Elena. If they can't meet with Elena, they can meet with Katie. Let's just keep the process moving. And it comes down to quarterbacking and making those good decisions. So I want to switch gears for a little bit here. And I'm just curious, Katie, from your perspective, I'm going to throw a little wild card in here. We're in an election year here in the United States. How do you see that affecting the overall job market from a hiring perspective? And then second part two, any like issues in the workplace when it comes to politics? What's kind of your thoughts on politics in the workplace? Two-part question, and I'll bounce it off of everybody so everyone can chime in here.
I love this question, and I love that I get to go first. So the first part of your question, how do I think the presidential race will sort of impact, the market? I think we're going to have to see how the markets react to who looks like they'll be the front runner. I think it's going to be a very close race. And I think that inflation is not going to react, in my opinion, directly as a result of the one way or the other, up or down, right? Directly as a result of the race. But I do think that in the back half of this year, the sort of cutting of rates hopefully frees up sort of like the VC capital that's just locked up sort of like in the world right now, because that's really, I think, the biggest driver, especially I'm coming from a tech perspective, obviously, but like biggest driver of the market right now is really that locked up VC capital. There are a lot of companies, the Gen AI companies, Series seed and A that are getting funded right now, which is actually really interesting and having an interesting impact on the market in terms of like the fractional work that we're seeing at the executive level. That's a new thing. And that's really happening because the VC funding has gone into seed stage and A stage round companies for the last like 2 years. And so the balance of the earlier stage versus the growth stage companies right now is pretty dynamic, and there's a really big spread there. So I think that's having more of an interesting direct impact on the labor market. In the workplace, it certainly is distracting. It's certainly at least in Gladly or in a culture that I create, you're encouraged to talk about it, and we very intentionally create an inclusive environment where both opinions and both sides are equally respected. And I'm all for it. I mean, I think if we're not talking about it out loud, we're talking about it or thinking about it, and especially in our remote environment where the internet's here and the TV's there, and we're all thinking about it anyway. So we might as well all just talk about it and use it to create that moment of connection.
That's an interesting perspective too, Elena. Like one of the big pieces when I talk about DEI and B, when I talk about diversity, it's not just the outward appearance or religion or sexual orientation, anything like that, but it's diversity of mindset, right? Like I think most of us would agree, hopefully, that we don't want to work with a company that's yes men and women and everybody. Like we don't want just yes people. We want diversity of mindset. So, how do you, like, Elena, when you're interviewing and when you're training recruiters too, like to manage and park your bias, but also ensure that you're having conversations to see if people are curious, intellectual, without kind of crossing that line? I never really liked the question, tell me what you do outside of work. Like part of it I like, because I like to hear what people are doing, but it could also, I've been shocked a couple of times on that. I got taxidermy on one of them. I'm like, that's cool. Tell me more about it, because I was interested.
I also got that one time. That's interesting. I hope it wasn't the same person. I don't know, or maybe not.
Right, but you get interesting questions because I want to hear what gets them excited. I want to hear about it, but it could also be a Pandora's box on some interesting candidates.
Yeah, I think, well, obviously politics, religion, all of the super highly sensitive subjects you don't want to directly ask. So we all hopefully are in agreement there. But for Labelbox, one of our core values is craftsmanship. And that goes into what you do for work. So your craft, as for me as a recruiter, as a talent person. But you might have some other. That's an umbrella that you can talk about your hobbies or whatever craft you're pursuing in outside of work. So that's really our question, to learn more about the person more holistically. But it really depends on how comfortable they feel to share. If they don't want to go into their personal crafts, whatever they're pursuing, that's totally fine. If they want to stick to business, that's totally fine. But if they want to share, that's great. So I think it's important to respect everybody's comfort level when it comes to sharing. And obviously when it comes to my recruiters, I think they're very plugged into our culture, so we have a good sense of when to back off, when to maybe push harder on certain questions or follow up and dig deeper. But it's that's our umbrella. That's our point of approaching that.
Here's my follow-up question to you. Skill is, in my opinion, and generally speaking, the easier one to assess on paper. The hard one are values and character, which are tough. What's like kind of your thought process, your line of questioning to really assess someone's character, their values? And I don't use the F word. I don't use fit. I hate culture fit. It's my least favorite expression. I will link everybody up to my keynote on why I hate this word afterwards. But it's fit just means the same, in my opinion. But how do you get to the core of someone's character and skill in a 45, 60-minute call?
Yeah, I think so. For us, we are very big on transparency, I would say, and we lead with, hey, this is the culture at Labelbox. This is, what it takes to be successful here. So really sharing everything anyone would want to know about potentially joining, us as a team. And then it's really up to them to figure out if that's a fit for them, the effort, sorry, if that is aligned with what they are looking for, and not necessarily us making that decision for them. I think it's important to just be transparent and say like, hey, this is who we are. And if you're going to be happy here, then, you're more than welcome. If not, that's a decision you need to make for yourself. So that's the overarching approach that we have when it comes to this F word.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Anna Morgan, from your perspective too, because you and I are similar, we are fractional recruiters. We get embedded. We do all different work on the side. So sometimes it's hard for us. We do our, let me spin that a different way. We do our best to represent the company that we're recruiting for. But at the same time, we're not there. We're not on their payroll. We're not inside their walls, right? We're doing the best we can, and it's hard to communicate that. But how do you get to the core of someone's values?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring back one small point before I dive into that, was the silver lining of kind of what's happened over the last couple of years. And I always think it's like we have to kind of keep the door of the past open to remind us, what was going on prior to COVID, and, what happened, where did we invest, how were our recruiting teams and organizations functioning at those times. And one of the things I see is from COVID, businesses and organizations started to recognize their employees as so much more than just, box checkers and employees. They had mental health issues. They were, daughters, spouses, etc., and started looking at their workforce in such a more holistic way, I would say. So as a recruiter that's representing a variety of, different clients, some of the ways that I really get into a day in the life, because transparency is hot right now. And it's our job to, again, paint that picture of what it's going to be like for that candidate working in the organization. So I spend quite a bit of time in my intake and discovery and calibration. I picked up 2 orders this morning, and, I said, the way I work is that I have weekly calibration meetings with you and your partner so that, we stay on time, we stay on task. You've got to fill these positions by mid-July. That's going to make, reasonable commitment on both sides. So just being an excellent communicator and project manager through that process for both the candidate and the hiring teams. If I have a chance to go on site and shadow, sit alongside or walk the halls, like I did in the old days pre-COVID, I would certainly take advantage of that. Because the more of that data and that intel of that's really where you can focus on, culture fit. And what is the golden thread of commonality of the successful people in that company? I ask that question a lot.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. Anna wanted me to bring something up, and it was on my list here too, as far as talking about metrics within the hiring organization. We'll start with Elena. This metric of quality of hire. There's speed to hire. Which I hate because it's just flawed with so many external BS factors there. But quality of hire is an interesting one. It's almost like a baseball term called WAR, which is wins over replacement, right? Like, how much better is this person doing than the person before that? Which is like, you know what? We're talking sabermetrics and like the quality of hire. Quality of hire. Mm-hmm. Is that a metric you guys use, or just generally speaking, is that something that you embrace? And if so, how do you use it?
This has been such a topic for us this past year, because I like it. Just let me say this. It's a very complex thing to measure, but it opens up some interesting conversations with the hiring teams, because it's not only recruiting. And that's really one of my things whenever I build a recruiting team. I really want to embed that in the culture and like build the recruiting culture overall. And that takes partnership, and that takes accountability on all sides to make a high quality hire, right? So that was really the foundation of this conversation around how do we measure it, what do we do with it to begin with. And so what we ended up doing is to look at the first 90 days. So we send out this is the simplified version. We went through many different versions, but we landed on this very simple one where we send a survey, which is really just one question to the hiring manager at the 90-day mark, and see how they think that new hire is doing, how they would rate their performance in that first 90 days. By doing that, we really uncovered a few interesting things. We uncovered that in certain teams, there was no onboarding plans. And so we went and put those together. Or we uncovered that
onboarding. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Like, we had questions from hiring managers like, well, how should I answer this, by this or by that dimension? Or so we needed to kind of standardize, what do we understand by performance? What are the expectations of a new hire in the first 90 days? And that really, really helped us to define and get to the point where we know exactly what a person needs to be doing at the 30-day mark, 60-day mark, 90-day mark. And then we took that and communicated that throughout the hiring process. So kind of, going back to connecting the dots and having a holistic experience, this is how we use this quality of hire conversation. At this 90-day mark, we also have a conversation with the new hire, and we ask them, and my recruiters do, because they already have a relationship. And so they tend to, share more things with their recruiter. And we get a pretty good picture of
but it's not necessarily a performance. It's not necessarily a performance review. It's more like, how's it going? Do you feel like you were set up for success? Do you feel like you were onboarded properly? Does the expectations that were communicated during the hiring process, are you doing that? And it's not like a complaint session. That's a political way of saying bitch fest, but it's a complaint session. But but it's a balance too, because you also want to get input from the hiring manager. Hey, did we hire the right person too? Right? And
yes, exactly.
Calibrating all these voices and mixed messages.
Yeah. And we want to get both sides of the story. And if there are any discrepancies, then that's something that we need to take further and investigate and see why there are discrepancies. We rarely have them, but when we do, it's really worth looking into and seeing where those are coming from. Most of the times it's miscommunication, or people are too busy to set expectation from the get-go, or misunderstandings that can be easily clarified. But even with those, it's really a great opportunity to catch them super early and not let them, yeah, exactly. And
don't let them fester and get worse. And
exactly. Yeah. So we've had some really good, productive conversations under this quality of hire umbrella.
Feedback's only good if you do something with it, right, Katie? So what are you guys doing? Do you guys have a quality of hire metric that you utilize?
So I don't love the quality of hire metric. To me, it feels really subjective. And what Elena is actually saying is that there are so many different pieces of the candidate experience that go into influencing whether or not they're going to work out long-term. And what does long-term mean anyway? When a company is growing and scaling quickly, how long is a good enough time to stay at a company before your skill set is outgrown?
That's a whole other podcast. That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I don't love that. But what I love thinking about really is the candidate and then employee experience journey, through their whole life cycle. And that's about, not, what are they coming into the organization with? What skills? And what are they going to learn and grow, and how are they going to develop while they're here? And how are we going to have this amazing mutual sort of, experience where the candidate, now employee, is super fulfilled and is learning and growing and becomes even better over time, or as the company grows and scales really quickly, maybe they outgrow it. So lots of unpacking there, but all of that to say, I don't love the quality of hire metric.
Well, I'm going to finish this line of questions with Anna Morgan, because it's your question. Here's your request and dedication.
I have very strong feelings about quality of hire. Still, it came up at a conference recently, so I wanted to, throw that curveball y'all's way and see. What was your question, Adam?
I'm on mute. No, I want your hot take on it. Why don't you like it?
Well, it's not that I don't like it. I see it as a vehicle to Katie's point and Elena's point, to force the business to look at these other areas and their part in the talent acquisition process, right? To your point, we need to button up our onboarding. Our orientation was a shit show. I didn't get my computer for 2 weeks. Even when I had my computer, I wasn't able to get my login. And so it gives us, the clear data where talent can partner with those HR business partners better, with our HR tech team, to create, automated workflows. That's like, we're excited to see you on your first day. Hey, hiring manager, here's the list of things that you need to do. Order a trash can, make sure they have a cube space. Here's their address. Maybe give them a call, tell them that you're excited to have them on board, because so much gets dumped in the recruiter seat. And then they're like, we're managing all of the candidate experience things and a heavy workload. And so quality of hire discussions are great because it brings in more of the organization to make this a priority, where so many times I feel like, at least in my experience, we're like, we need to make this better. Like, what can we do? We work so hard to get them in the door. We want them to stay. But so much of the time, we don't have a seat at the table to partner with the HR business partners or the tech, or, part of that process, depending on the organization. Startup might be very different than Fortune 500, et cetera. The initial kind of gut reaction I had to it was like, quality of hire is only accessible to organizations that are pulling all the levers and like have the most perfect talent and HR execution team, which we know does not exist in most companies, right?
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself.
maybe, but in like, perfect.
We do our best, right? It's never going to be perfect.
Yeah, everything's firing on all the cylinders. Everyone's doing their part. Nothing falls through the cracks. I call very unlikely that exists.
Very, very, very.
I'm
shout out to the people team.
Optimistic that with women like you running the show, those organizations will be the exception.
Well, we are getting towards the end of the show here. Oh, no, not done yet. We're going to stop the end of show music because we have a final question that I like to wrap the show up. This has been a fantastic conversation. I could probably do this for another couple of hours and just keep hitting on every topic there. But I think the question that kind of keeps it really topical, we're going to start with Elena. We're going to go around the horn here, and I'd love to know what is keeping you up at night these days, and then just wrap it up where tell folks where they could find you, where they connect, where they could learn more.
What keeps me up at night
work-wise,
yes.
Dogs,
Thanks for
kids, nightmares, trying to think about the lotto numbers. I do that sometimes. I'm like, I'm just gonna go run to the store. No, I don't.
I think for me is really balancing the capacity of my team with the ever-evolving needs of the business. I think, especially in the past year, everything has started to accelerate so quickly, and like so much in terms of, just changes in the business, changes to the needs, like hiring, we're not hiring, we're hiring like 10 times more, so trying to always make sure that my team is fully equipped to handle those changes, manage those changes. That's what keeps me up at night.
Katie Evans Reber.
I spend a lot of my time thinking about the business itself, and really thinking about how the different teams and folks across the entire organization are working together to support the business. And I think in the last just couple of years, it's been so hard to predict what will happen from a macroeconomic perspective across the whole year, that really it's just sort of keeping everybody marching in the same direction and excited and engaged is the thing that is continually on my mind.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. Where could folks connect? Where could they learn more?
For me?
Yeah.
Well, I'm here. So I know you can find me on LinkedIn, all the regular social posts, and, come connect with me.
Come connect with everybody here. And Anna Morgan, bring us home. What's keeping you up at night these days besides dogs, kids looking for bathing suits, trying to figure out what to do with them? It's summer break in Atlanta.
I think staying relevant. The big conversation I've been having with female Gen X talent professionals is like, how do I not turn into a dinosaur? And that's upskilling with generative AI, continuing to, be involved in these conversations like we're having today, learning from my peers and having, courageous, candid conversations with our clients, with our community, and out there on the platform as well to keep these conversations going. Will companies, continue to embrace AI and dump all of their information into VPN and, an AI bot actually be doing the first screens with candidates? Maybe. I've heard a wide variety of stories, and I think as job seekers look at, the ATS being this great white whale, recruiters are looking at AI kind of in that same mystical, worrisome, fearful place. But for me, I lay there and think, how can I be leveling up, staying relevant, and being of maximum service to my community and the clients I serve?
I love it. Anna Morgan. And where can folks
on
find
LinkedIn?
You?
That's where you can find me.
Find everybody here on LinkedIn. And I want to thank my panel today, Anna, Elena, and Katie. Thank you so much for joining us on the POZcast. If you are listening live, thank you for spending an hour with us. If you're listening on the POZcast replay, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us as well. You know where to find out more at thepozcast.com. Follow us on all the social media channels. Check out Instagram at NHP Talent. Remember, be good to yourself, be better to others, and catch us next week for another great episode of the POZcast. Take care, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I want to talk about a product and platform that I absolutely love, and our latest sponsor, Interseller, the prospecting and outreach platform of choice for recruiters and sellers. Whether you're doubling down on business development or recruiting talent, Interseller does all the heavy lifting of finding contact data, automating the email and follow-up process, and syncs all that rich data into 20-plus CRM and ATS platforms. Reach out now and get going on a 2-week free trial and let them know you heard about it from Adam on the POZcast today. Check out the link on the website. Appreciate it.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the POZcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepozcast.com.